Hello there, people of the internet. I just read a comment talking about 9mm and 45 ACP. And in the comment, he was talking about how much better 45 ACP is. And I will acknowledge that 45 ACP, as a general rule, is better in terms of capabilities than 9mm. However, there's so much more that goes into the capabilities of a cartridge than just the cartridge itself. And I think that people underestimate how much goes into the idea of what a good cartridge actually is. So I got a 9mm. I got a 40 Smith & Wesson. Let me go ahead and just confirm that these guns are clear here. And I have a 45 ACP in my 1911 here. And we can all conclude that if we're rocking ball ammunition, 45 ACP is going to be the better option. It has been shown on repeated occasion to have more power and capability than ball 9mm. Especially if we're talking about like 115 grain ball 9mm. You can get better results with 124 grain ball 9mm, but it's still not going to be great. Whenever it comes to the type of ammunition that you use, the caliber doesn't really matter if we're talking about handguns. Whenever it comes to 9mm, 40, and 45, realistically, in a practical standpoint, they don't really outperform one more than the other until we start looking into actual proper defensive ammunition. Wow, that was a really big hiccup. Sorry guys, I get the hiccups. It's just something that happens to me. But if you start looking at proper defensive ammunition, then you start to see even more of a gray area in a lot of aspects. Something like this right here will perform significantly better in a human-sized target than something like a ball round, even a ball 45 ACP. This ball 45 ACP that I have loaded up in this 1911 mag here, this is a 230 grain bullet, and it'll probably travel from a 1911 length barrel probably around 800 feet per second. There are some spicier ones out there that'll probably travel 850 feet per second, but from a 1911 length barrel, we're just going to call it 800 feet per second. That against a human target, it's not going to be pretty, but if you have somebody that's really, really drunk or messed up on some kind of drug, and nowadays there's so many kinds of drugs coming into the country, and there's so many people that are deciding to use them and cause trouble. If you have somebody that is hyped up on something and they have a hole that is poked into them, especially if they're hyped up on like a really, really bad drug, like say meth, that causes your blood vessels to constrict to where if you poke a hole in someone, they're not going to bleed all that much, then you have to hit something pretty significantly vital in order to actually put that person down. And a lot of people preach about proper shot placement, but those people, whenever they preach about something like that, tell me that they've never been inside of a stressful situation. Because whenever you have a meth head with, say, a machete right on top of you, swinging at you, you're not going to get proper shot placement with your handgun. As a matter of fact, if they are within any real distance to require you to be able to legally defend yourself, odds are you're not going to have the time for proper shot placement. Especially if you're rocking iron sights. That's a whole topic for another video. But if you have a particular cartridge that is designed to, say, mushroom, expand, possibly even fragment, and send pieces other than like the little tiny hole that the core is making, send pieces of that bullet into other parts of the body, like say there's certain things out there that like flower and expand out and do more damage than what a ball round would be able to do, then shot placement still matters. I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter, but it matters less. Like with a ball round, you hit someone right in the pumper right here, and they're going down. But with a round that flowers and fragments and sends shrapnel and whatnot all over the place, like some defensive handguns are designed to do, you hit them, I don't know, right here, and they get a flower petal up into the heart, and then they're done doing what they're doing. So you have more leeway with something like that. I think it's just going to end up doing more damage. If I had a 40 Smith & Wesson, which would normally do significantly less damage than a 45 ACP, but if I had something like this with proper defensive ammunition, then it would be more capable than your 45 ACP. Now, if we start comparing apples to apples and we get like proper 45 ACP defensive loads, like say, I don't know, 185 grain plus P, then we'll start to see a little bit more of a difference between these particular cartridges, but it's still not going to be all that significant. If we compare defensive 45 ACP loads to defensive, say, 40 Smith & Wesson loads, or even defensive 9mm loads, like 147 plus P loads for the 9mm, that's a pretty common defensive defensive cartridge for that particular handgun. And if we look at any gel tests on the internet, you can literally just go type into the YouTube search bar and look these things up. There's not much of a difference. They're all going to be significantly better than the ball rounds, but the difference between the cartridges, even though there is going to be a little bit of a difference, in the words of the great Paul Harrell, it's not enough of a difference to actually make a difference. If you smack somebody with a defensive 9mm round and a defensive 45 ACP round, like a proper defensive load, then they're gonna more than likely get put down from that. The amount of damage that's going to get done from that is gonna be significantly more substantial than just using a ball round. Like even ball 45 ACP pales in comparison to a proper defensive 9mm load. So your bullet type definitely matters significantly more than whatever caliber or cartridge it is that you're looking to go through, if we're talking about the conventional, like, top 3 picks for handgun cartridges. If we want to start comparing, like, I don't know, 500 Smith & Wesson to 25 ACP, then we're going to start to see some pretty significant differences. But by a pretty huge margin, people are normally looking at 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, and 45 ACP. Those are the big cartridges that get tossed around a lot in terms of what people talk about whenever it comes to their handgun cartridges and handgun capabilities, and there's just not enough of a difference between all of these cartridges. If you're rocking proper defensive loads, there's not enough of a difference between the cartridges for it to really matter. So pick the right kind of bullet, pick the right kind of defensive load, pick the right kind of well, there's so many more aspects that go into just caliber. Don't just focus on caliber. Focus on other aspects of what bullet it is that you're actually deciding to use, and then you can make your decision on what it is that you want to do. Like, for example, 1911, great little handgun, limited capacity. 9mm, they tend to have more capacity. Like this right here is a 15-round double stack versus the single stack 45 ACP. This particular one is a 8-round magazine for my 1911. So less capacity, and the rounds don't necessarily make enough of a difference for anything to really matter. And then there's 40 Smith & Wesson. That's like a, it's supposed to be a middle ground, but that's probably a topic for another time because it's not really a middle ground between 9mm and 45. So I guess it all really depends on what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you in particular want, but it doesn't matter. Realistically speaking, from a practical standpoint on what to actually expect in a human target, the difference is not enough to matter. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.